Welcome, everybody, to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. Today is Sunday, May 12th. Happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers out there in this world. We got a couple matches to talk about today. Chelsea beating Forest yesterday 3-2, and Bayern's B team taking down Wolfsburg 2-0 today, as well as maybe a couple of match previews and some other notes. So welcome to the show.
Mom, if you're listening, I love you. Happy Mother's Day. Appreciate all the things you've done for me, and hope you're getting in the beautiful game of football.
Wow, that just about brought a tear to my eye. I can echo those thoughts to my mother and to your mother as well. So, thanks for all you do.
And it really is a beautiful weekend. The weather's been amazing for this Mother's Day weekend. The football has been incredible to watch. As you mentioned, both of our teams got a great victory. And we're kind of ending the year in style. Bayern, although they lost, made a deep run into the Champions League. Chelsea flying high. So both teams to get a win this weekend was something special, I think.
I think so too. Do you want to start off and kind of recap that exciting Chelsea match? Because that was one to behold, and that's one to sing highly about.
And man, did I have a lot of thoughts during the match. I mean, I was texting you when I was watching, and I was going back and forth. It was a roller coaster because when they went up, it was so great. I was so excited, thinking that they were continuing the beautiful form that they've been playing as of late, and then they go down and back up, and it was just insane, the back and forth. And as I'm texting you these thoughts about Poch, whether I want to keep him, whether he's good for the club, but that's how the season has gone for Chelsea. That's how the match went. And the margin right now for how they will finish the year, currently being in 7th, is so razor thin in terms of the coach, whether you keep him. All these decisions will happen after the season. So it's probably bad for me to be thinking these things during the match. But, yeah, this match was insane. You know, I mentioned it starts with Chelsea going 1-0 up. And it was a beautiful, beautiful through ball by Palmer, finding Misha Mudryk.
Yep.
First touch, amazing with his left foot to kind of cut back inside in front of the defender, and then opens his hips up and slots it right in past the keeper to go up 1-0.
Yeah, I was thinking that whole match, this is just classic Chelsea. The up and down, the roller coaster like you mentioned. And I got to give it to Mudryk. That was a confident first touch and just confident strike in general. And you love to see a young guy like that playing with that much bravado.
And that's when he's at his best, is when he's finding ways to use his speed, get past guys. I love when his teammates, whether it's with a ball over the top of the defenders when he's running past them, or that ball that Palmer had there where he perfectly weights it between two Nottingham Forest defenders so that nobody can get to it except Mudryk. I mean, that pass is so tough because it's so perfectly weighted that it's not too quick, which would lead Mudryk toward that goal line, but it's also not too slow where a defender would snatch it. It's literally in that perfect spot, and then he takes it in. And yeah, that was a great finish, confident finish.
It's the pass is the definition of threading it through. Just threading it through, yeah, like you said. It was Goldilocks. It wasn't too far. It wasn't too shallow. It was just perfect.
Not too hot, not too cold. A classic metaphor and tale for the children out there that are listening.
The children. We have a huge child audience, I guess. I'm just finding out about.
Maybe we do. Who knows? But I tell you what, the kids would have been upset and throwing a tantrum at what happened next because Chelsea, as they've done most of the year, give up a goal 8 minutes later. And it's so frustrating because the way they gave it up, after this goal by Mudryk, they're playing dreadful. The entire first half after that first goal, they played like absolute shit. I'm not going to sugarcoat it because they really were poor. And this goal they gave up off a set piece, they hardly marked this guy.
They hardly moved.
Yeah, I don't know what Chalobah was doing. He's supposed to be marking this guy, lets him easily have a run toward the net. wide open header that I think maybe deflected off somebody, but either way it's going in, and Petrovic has no chance to save it because he's so close to the goal and has that free header. I mean, that's such poor defending.
Yeah, like I said, it looked like nobody marked, nobody moved. It was really inexplicable.
So they tie it up 1-1. I'm thinking, here we go again. Chelsea looked great to start. Now they're looking terrible. Forest had some other chances the rest of the first half, but it was fairly boring the rest of that first half. Chelsea weren't threatening at all. I mean, they dominated possession for the most part in that first half, but typical Chelsea from early on in the season weren't doing anything with it, so that was frustrating. You're thinking at this point, Poch has got to make some subs or change something up. That inverted left back play of Cucurella, they were trying it, but it wasn't working at all, which I think you saw coming because it had worked so successfully for 2 matches. You expected teams to take note and start to learn how to defend it a little bit better. And Chelsea, they just didn't look motivated in the first half, which you hate to see toward the end of the season.
Yeah, the defense especially I thought looked considerably poor there at moments, and that's the thing. It's like this is crunch time in the season. Chelsea still has something to play for. Obviously, Forest has something to play for, and you want to see more heart and spirit.
So Forest was playing to clinch not being relegated. If they were to draw, they would have clinched it. Luton Town had lost earlier in the morning or afternoon over there, so they were playing for that. At this point, it's 1-1. Second half starts, and there's one player that really had something to play for in a revenge matter, and that's Callum Hudson-Odoi. Was on Chelsea. They officially sold him to Forest for £3 million, euros, whatever it was. He was looking so good in the second half, really giving Trevor Chalobah some trouble. The former teammates going up against each other. Always looked like he was looking to cut inside on that right foot to get a chance at goal. Finally does it in the 74th minute after a few minutes earlier hitting the post, cutting inside. Cuts right inside, gets it on his right foot, and bends it into the net. Petrovic really had no chance. Ultimately, poor defending. I'm not sure what they were doing. You knew he's trying to go inside with that right foot the entire time, and he bends it right in.
Yeah, it was a great strike, but like you said, you can't defend like that at this point in a match, at this point in the season. Yeah, against a team who's fighting to not get relegated. You really just can't allow that amount of space that close to the goal, because that is a danger zone. You know, it takes an incredible strike, which it was, but you leave that opportunity open, and some players are just going to take it.
Yeah, so this was in the 74th minute, and probably 20 minutes prior, Poch had made 2 subs, which I agreed with. He brought in Malo Gusto for Badiashile, so you put Chalobah back into the center of the defense with Thiago Silva. Gusto's out on that right back position. He didn't look amazing on the day, so him and Chalobah are part of that right side that gives up the space and goal for Hudson-Odoi. He also brought in Nkunku in that 58th minute for Noni Madueke, who I thought was really poor on the day. Madueke had one of his worst performances. He's also on that right side, supposed to be helping when he gets back on D against Hudson-Odoi. So that was just a tough overall look, I think, for that right side of Chelsea's defense. Most of the second half, pretty poor.
So what's going through your head at this point as it's 2-1 and late in the match in the 74th minute?
I'm not going to look back at my text I sent you, but I'm definitely really worried about Poch. I think I had said Poch is gone if the result stays. Yep. I didn't mean that they were going to fire him before the season ends, but it was at the point where I'm thinking, if we don't get a result here, we're staying in 7th, but 3 back of Newcastle. It's just looking like you don't really have a chance at 6th. Maybe you stay in 7th and get Conference League, but it just wasn't looking good in the way they were playing either. And that's why I was so frustrated, because the way they had been playing, now to have a bump in the road at this point in the year when there's not much time left, it was looking tough.
Yeah, and at this point, if you're Chelsea, I looked at this match against Forest as basically a must-win in terms of late season push, going into the next season with momentum, and also fighting for a spot in Europe.
Definitely. I mean, these last three you looked at as all very winnable games, therefore must wins, because you might as well end the season very strong. And speaking of ending the season strong, they give up this second goal. You're down in the dumps, but in comes an unlikely hero in Raheem Sterling, who replaces Mudryk. Mudryk was okay on the day for the most part. He scored that goal, didn't do a ton else, not that anybody really did in the first 75 minutes. So here comes Sterling, hasn't seen a lot of action, has been ill, a little hurt here and there, hasn't done much in terms of goal contributions the second half of this season. Comes on in the 73rd minute. Reece James also comes on in the 79th minute, replacing Gallagher. And we're thinking, all right, we got our captain back. Guy hasn't played in months. Had hamstring surgery. The vibes are up. You're just thinking, all right, maybe he can provide some juice. Who knows how he's going to look. And, man, I got to say, he looked tremendous from the get-go. Looked like he had his speed back, his feet under him, was getting back defending well. And then you have it a minute later, a minute after your captain comes on. Raheem Sterling gets the ball on the left side. Probably thinks to himself, all right, I see my former teammate Hudson-Odoi tearing up my defenders. I'm going to copy the exact same goal that he had, cut inside with my right foot, and bend one perfectly into the corner. And that's what he did.
Yeah, I mean, that was basically the exact same goal that Forrest had, just whatever it was, 10 minutes or so beforehand. And that was a brilliant goal. You got to give it to Sterling. He's somebody who I look at as, having a very, very up and down season, almost like this entire Chelsea team. But, I've seen a couple performances from him that were really, really good, and then quite a few performances that were really, really bad. So it's good to get a guy like that back on track.
And him coming off the bench is exactly what I want from him going forward.
Yep.
He's not somebody I would anticipate being the starting left or right wing going forward for this younger team. But he has so much Premier League experience with his time at Liverpool and Man City that I'd want him as your super sub off the bench, first or second guy when you're down a goal. You can throw it there and just say, okay, go at this defender and try to score a goal. He scores a lot of goals like that where he's dribbling into the box and then finds a little space. He's so small, he can dribble the ball close to his body, find that little bit of space and take advantage. And he looked great scoring that goal. I mean, that's not an easy goal to score, but he made it look fairly easy, which was awesome.
Yeah, and then things keep going in the right direction for Chelsea shortly after.
2 minutes after, I think less than 2 minutes, I think they said a minute 40, a minute 50, something like that. You had this open play. There was some space. Caicedo gets the ball in the middle. A beautiful over-the-top looped pass down into the open space where Reece James could run and get the ball. And as he's curling toward the goal, toward the box, he's pretty far down on that right side when he gets to the ball. And I don't even think he took a touch. I think once he caught up to the ball, was just able to kick it and loop it perfectly back across the keeper, across the box at this point, where Nico Jackson is waiting. Perfect ball. I mean, you could not have had a better ball by Reece James. It was insane. Perfect to Jackson. Heads it right in, back across the net. And you're going crazy. I mean, your captain, who came back months on the bench, comes right in and has a huge impact. I mean, it's insane. And that ball, I just cannot talk enough about the pass. Insane.
I'll echo that sentiment. That was, a perfectly placed ball by Reece James. And honestly, in this short amount of time, he's out there looking like my favorite player on the team. I gotta say, it's an early declaration for me, but man, just the confidence that he instilled or seemingly instilled in the team with that one ball, there really isn't enough words to talk about it. So how do you feel? Do you feel like he's one of those guys who can be a difference maker just going forward, coming back?
Totally can be. You always knew that with all these players injured, Poch didn't have the team that he wanted and deserved. You know, Reece James at one point was widely known as the best right back in the world. Not even just in England. People were saying he might be the best right back in the world. And he would go on these streaks where he would score goals a ton, even at right back. Just the way he has the ability to push all the way up the field on the attack and then also be one of the best one-on-one defenders. I mean, he locks up left wings consistently when he's healthy. Even earlier this year when he was hardly healthy, was locking up guys like Jeremy Doku on Man City. So he's so important to the team. Obviously, he's the captain. But when he's healthy, he's so dynamic, so aggressive, so special on the attack. Has some of the best crosses you'll see. I mean, it's not just scoring these goals. The cross he had to Jackson, he does that consistently. You know, you have a guy like Malo Gusto who's 20, and he's had a great season. Don't get me wrong. He's been amazing at right back. Replacing what James has done over the years, he's been great, but we haven't seen him with the ability to consistently have these crosses delivered into the box, whereas James will provide that. So that'll be interesting to see going forward how they manage both of them together. I could almost see scenarios where you have both of them on the field.
Yeah, didn't James come in for Gallagher and play in the midfield?
He did, yeah. So I think Caicedo moved over to the left of the midfield where James was more on the right where he's used to being. So him and Gusto were on the pitch at the same time at the end there. And I liked some things I saw there. I think you could maybe go to a back three where it's almost a back five if you wanted both of them on the field.
Yeah.
You'd have some problems losing height if you have Gusto on there. But I think they're both athletic enough to cover a lot of space and be able to defend. And then you want Reece James to be able to push as high as he can on the attack because that's where he's at his best.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like one of those guys who can also just be a leader in the locker room, especially for a team like Chelsea who's basically desperately needing something like that, it seems like, with this mercurial up and down play. I think that you have a guy like that, and I'm just imagining the types of balls and the types of crosses and passes and facilitation that a guy like James and just overall leadership could have for the Mudryks of the world. And even, you know, it goes without saying, but I'm imagining him linking up with Palmer day in and day out.
Yeah, those two guys for sure, but then also Jackson, who he did link up with for this header. And Jackson, while I'm talking about him, people are still hating on Jackson. I get it. He's missed a lot of chances. For his first season to come in at the young age of 22 from La Liga, I mean, he's hardly had a ton of senior experience. He's had an incredible year. He has more non-penalty goals in the Premier League than Palmer. So that's incredible.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen enough of Chelsea to truly comment on this with complete confidence, but I really just see Jackson, and maybe in my head I'm just being stubborn, but I really just see him not as a striker, and that's not a knock on him or anything. I just see him, you know, playing in a wing position or something that's not a true striker position.
I definitely see him as kind of a backup striker left wing. Right now, I would say he's our best option at left wing. He's also right now our best option at striker. But let's say you purchase somebody else, as I've said in the past. Maybe you throw him at left wing. You're also going to have Christopher Nkunku, who prefers the number 10 position, but you could put him at striker. He's somebody that is good in the air and could get you some goals off of passes from a Reece James. So you just have a lot of exciting options to go through once these guys are fully healthy. And then you're still going to have Cole Palmer going forward, whether he's at the number 10 or on the right wing. Just a lot of options, and even guys coming off the bench that will really solidify and strengthen your team in the attack. And I couldn't be more excited to see what they do these next two matches, how they're able to bring some of these pieces together and give us a sneak peek at what we could be looking at going forward.
Yeah, I think, Poch is going to have some more options. I guess assuming that he's the coach next season too. I shouldn't say that with complete certainty, but Poch is going to have more options going forward, and we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if he can press the right buttons.
And I do just want to note a couple things from this match. I thought Moises Caicedo had a great game in midfield, has continued to look solid since Enzo Fernandez has been out. Gallagher didn't do a ton for me, but wasn't poor either. Petrovic was fine. The left side of the defense, nothing crazy poor. Silva was fine. Cucurella, probably a little worse than he has been doing. Jackson continues to make a lot of runs, as I've mentioned. Scores the winner, so great day for me from him. And yeah, I just couldn't be more excited to see Reece James back. The team's getting healthy. Vibes continue to be high. And as I said, we'll see where it goes from here. But Chelsea, things are looking up right now.
All right, well, let's quickly talk about this Bayern Munich matchup that we had today. The last home matchup for Bayern against Wolfsburg, who, man, oh man, they did not look good. They looked poor today. They went against essentially Bayern's B team. Bayern's top 5 attackers were all injured and did not even suit up for the match. Kane was out with back problems that he picked up against Madrid and just fought through. Sané has been dealing with pelvic issues for what seems like the last 6 months. Musiala has a knee injury just to play against Madrid. He was on heavy injections and painkillers. And then Gnabry, who has not had a healthy hamstring for the whole second half of the season, keeps trying to play these big matches and keeps re-injuring it. And then Kingsley Coman, who either a knee or ankle, I can't remember, but he picked that up, a few months ago and hasn't been healthy yet. And then also Choupo-Moting, too, was ill. So if, maybe you could count him as our 6th best attacker. So Bayern had a lot of guys who don't get many minutes, and, a handful of them are 18 years old and, got called up from the academy just to suit up for this one. So it was a really good win. I was happy with the 2-0 win, and really the first 20 to 30 minutes, you saw these young guys and these backups come out with a ton of fire, a ton of hunger, and just score 2 early goals, score a third that was called back for offside. And then after that, both teams pretty much just went to bed, and it was a snooze fest for the rest of the match. But, you could take a lot out of those first 20, 30 minutes and hang your head high if you're Bayern.
I always love matches like this, and I didn't watch the beginning most of the match, but I love seeing young guys out there, just seeing what they bring to the table, what they might have in store going forward, how they're looking in terms of the flow and connectivity with their teammates. And you still had a guy with years and years of experience in Muller out there playing with the young guys, which I'm sure for them is probably crazy to see. He's been playing for the amount of years that
they've been
that
alive.
They are.
Yeah,
right, which is insane.
Yeah, I think that Muller was really one of the best players on the pitch today, doing what he always does so well, which is directing, and you see him out there yelling and pointing, and he just has this vision that I really haven't seen from any other football player in my whole life. He, even at his advanced age, he's clearly, seeing the game so well and just, making big chances. I think he was completely responsible for really 3 or 4 of these big chances today.
Not that I want to change topic, but is he still a part of the German national team?
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be exciting to see him more this summer. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that, with all those years of experience, still looks like he always knows where to make the right pass. Even if the pass isn't perfect, he at least has the IQ to know where guys are, how to get in the right space, how to weight passes and weight shots, how to curl things in. It's awesome to see him still playing at a high level.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking back, I kind of wish he would have got the start or at least more playing time against Madrid. But that's for, I guess, a different day to discuss because, yeah, Gnabry was clearly still hurt and all of our attackers were hurt, really, except for Muller. So it would have been nice to see him in there a little bit more against Madrid. But anyways, going back to this match, 3 minutes into the match, you see the 18-year-old kid, Zvanarek, which I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, to be honest, but he was actually called up pretty recently from the academy. He got a few minutes in a couple other matches too here, but he comes in 3 minutes in with just an awesome goal, and that really set the tone in the beginning of the match. And then I think it was the 12th or 14th minute. It wasn't that much longer when Goretzka has an amazing goal. You have a beautiful ball from Zaragoza on the wing, right to Muller, who we just got done talking about, who just sets Goretzka up perfectly with a little nice touch, and Goretzka just sends it home for the second goal of the match. And like I said, from there it was just complete domination from Bayern in the first half, really. Zaragoza actually got a goal that was ruled off because Muller was offside, even though he had a really, really nice assist there as well. So yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to those attackers, Zvanarek, Muller, and Zaragoza, who came over from Spain earlier this season and really has hardly seen the pitch, but he was clearly hungry and he showed some fire in that attack today. And then, yeah, I mean, the defense looked solid overall too. So did the midfield. Pavlovic was in there. They didn't have to do a whole lot. Like I said, Wolfsburg kind of went to sleep, and honestly Bayern did too at the end of the match. It was just a snooze fest.
Yeah, they showed the XG at the end of the game, 0.35 and 0.22. Dreadful on all accounts. It seemed like one of those things where, and not having watched, it's tough to comment, but you score 2 goals pretty quick, you're feeling great about yourselves, then you don't get a third, it gets ruled off, and you kind of just settle in. Maybe you're a little disappointed you didn't get that third, but you realize, we're up 2, we don't have much to play for anyway, we don't want to get injured and play too hard, we don't have that many guys that can even come on and play. True. So I think both teams probably settled in knowing that, and it was unfortunate that it turned out that way, but sometimes matches get like that. Chelsea had one recently against West Ham that it looked like West Ham weren't doing much. So similar to Wolfsburg, I'm sure, where once you go down, it's kind of just the end at that point.
Yeah, so I guess as far as ratings go, I'm giving Neuer a 9 just because, clean sheet. He didn't really have to do that much. And then I believe his name's Daniel Peretz, who's the, third string goalie on Bayern right now. Got some minutes too, his first Bundesliga minutes at the end of the match there, which was cool. And then as far as the defense goes, it was Kimmich and then Kim and Upamecano. Kim had to come off eventually, twisted his ankle, and De Ligt got a few minutes at the end, but really just solid defense from those guys. I'm giving them all 7s. Davies was the right back or the left back, and I'm giving him a 6. It wasn't a great performance from Davies, but I don't know. I thought he looked solid on the offensive, which is kind of funny, just not great in the defensive role. So it's the kind of thing with him. If he ends up sticking around, I wonder if there's a use case for him in kind of a wing position instead of the defensive left back that he's always been.
What's the percentage right now that he stays? For me, it's 12%.
Well, I think if you ask me the percentage that he stays next year until his contract is up, it's maybe like 33%, but beyond that, I would say it's 5% maybe. I think that Madrid's looking at him right now, seeing his recent slump, barring that incredible goal against Madrid in the Champions League. Still want to give him props for that. I think Madrid's looking at him and they're like, we don't necessarily need him next season. We don't necessarily need to pay Bayern for him right now. So maybe we'll wait and see what happens next season and then just try to get him for free in the summer of 2025.
That's the thing is Bayern are not going to let him go for free. So if he has 1 year left, in my mind, if they think he's gone and can't get an extension, there's no chance that they let him walk after next year. So whether it's to Madrid or somebody else this offseason, I think you have to take advantage of selling him. That's kind of the unfortunate part about this business is the way those contracts work. You have to sell guys if they have 1 year left and you're not extending them. You don't want to let them walk.
Yeah, Bayern's in a really bad position with him, to be honest, because their latest offer for him still stands. That's kind of the current news. It's, I think, around 17 million euros a season or something like that. And he wants, 20, 30, whereas, Madrid's not going to pay that. So Bayern's pretty much just screwed with him. But we'll see what happens. It's interesting, As much as I've dogged on the guy, I do hope that he stays. I think he just has such a high ceiling that it's worth keeping him around. Granted, I don't really want to overpay for the guy, but it'd be nice if he stuck around. And moving on to the midfield this match, I thought that they were fantastic. Goretzka had that goal, and he looked great. I'm giving him a 9. Pavlovic, I'm giving an 8. He looked solid as well. And then, I talked about the attack. Zaragoza, Muller, and Zvanarek, giving them all 8s. And then Tell, unfortunately, I thought had a down match for him. He was all right, but I'm giving him a 6. It would have been nice if he could have done a little bit more, gotten a goal or something.
Only thing I saw to Tell toward the end was him trying to take out the keeper, take out his legs, which just brought me back to thinking about Karate Kid sweeping the leg. So tough scenes from Tell there.
Yeah. So tough scenes from Tell, but overall good scenes from Bayern. We'll take that one, especially with all the guys that were out. Right now Bayern moves back up into second place in the Bundesliga with 72 points. Next Saturday they play Hoffenheim. They've got 43 points. They're in 7th place. They pulverized somebody today, 6-0 or something like that. So they're really no slouch. It'll be interesting to see. The only other note I have from the match today is I'm really bummed out that Kane couldn't play because this was the match where he was gonna kind of score another hat trick or something and really close in on that record. But now it's, for all intents and purposes, lost.
Yeah, and if you're Kane, you shouldn't be focused on individual records at this point, seeing that you have no team trophies in your trophy case. He needs to regroup, get healthy. He's probably thinking ahead to the Euros at this point, where England has a good chance, but Bayern really just need him to be healthy and focused for next season in the Bundesliga, and then gearing up for Champions League as well next year. So I don't think anybody's really going to be crazy mad or disappointed that he sat out. You'd like to see him score more goals, sure, it'd be awesome, but there's a time where you need to think more about the future as well for him.
Yeah, and I think that his back injury that he picked up against Madrid is a little bit more serious than most people are giving it credit for, or he's even willing to give it credit for. I think that's the same back injury that's kind of bogged him throughout his career. I think that's the injury that held him out against Liverpool in the Champions League final, whatever that was, 2019 or something, on Spurs. It's just it's a bummer to see. It's like we mentioned last week, this type of thing happens when you have guys like Kane who play 90 minutes every single match and you don't really lock away the Bundesliga early enough in the season. But yeah, I mean, regardless of all that, Kane was Bayern's best player this year. He deserves this rest. He should rest up and make sure he's healthy for the Euros. And I'm going to be watching next week and hoping that they can win or at least draw to Hoffenheim and lock in that second place spot in the Bundesliga, and then ideally play for that German Super Cup next year.
Oh, because if they're in the second position, they would qualify for that, or how's that work?
Yeah, so the German Super Cup is the winner of the Bundesliga versus the winner of the DFB Pokal,
which we talked about because
yeah.
Leverkusen has both.
Yeah, and Leverkusen is playing in the final of the Pokal, and they locked down the Bundesliga, obviously. I'd be shocked if they didn't win the Pokal. They're playing against a team that's in the second Bundesliga.
Okay, so Leverkusen, yeah, they're still on their undefeated run. Maybe the greatest team in the history of the world.
I mean, this is the longest undefeated run in Europe. They just broke it last week, 49 matches.
It is crazy. I mean, what we're witnessing is an unreal thing for any team to do. I'm glad they'll be considered better than the Invincibles, which was an Arsenal team in the early 2000s, which is disgusting. But by the way, last night I met an Arsenal fan, I think. I forget where it was. But I was talking to somebody and saying London is blue, and that was, not to get off track, but I'm just shocked right now because thinking about meeting an Arsenal fan
in the wild
is so gross, and
so the only other thing I want to talk about relating to Bayern Munich here is their ongoing coaching search. Obviously you have at least three that we know about, rejections / whatever you want to spin you want to put on it, guys sticking with their national teams or whatever. Xabi Alonso staying with Leverkusen, Julian Nagelsmann staying with Germany, and Ralf Rangnick staying with Austria. Currently, right now, there's reports that Bayern's talking to Hansi Flick again to get him back. And I know that De Zerbi's still a name that's in the air. The rumors are that Max Eberl, one of Bayern's directors, really likes De Zerbi. And then, not to stoke any sort of fires here because there's been a lot of fans talking about this. There was a ceremony planned to send off Thomas Tuchel during the last home matchup today of the season for Bayern, and that ceremony got canceled. So, as many times as Tuchel and everybody on the Bayern's board has ruled out him staying next year, there's still some fans who want it.
My choice and decision would be for Tuchel to stay for another year until you figure something else out that's better, whether it's Alonso and throwing the bag at him or somebody else. I'll get a good look at De Zerbi this week. He usually has a pretty good plan against Chelsea. Brighton, toward the end of the year, has been fairly poor. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know if he's necessarily as attractive as he once was. His looks haven't changed, but in terms of his style and performance as manager, just hasn't been up to par with what I think he expects. There was a time where everybody was saying he's the next Pep. He's going to take over for Pep at City when he's done. I don't think he's on that level anymore.
Right. I mean, you saw, first of all, he's not as attractive as Alonso in every sense of the word. I am pretty certain that Alonso is going to go to Madrid. Not to derail us completely, but I mean it just makes too much sense. He played there. He scores 1,000 goals in stoppage time, just like Madrid does. But yeah, anyways, I think that like you said, De Zerbi's had some hiccups as of late, whether it be injuries or players moving on to different teams, or maybe people kind of just had more time to figure out his style and kind of plan against it.
Yeah, and I know for sure a criticism of him is that he doesn't adapt as well when matches are happening and people figure out his plans. I'm hoping Chelsea throttle Brighton on Wednesday 8-0, because then if you're a Bayern fan, you look at that and say, who the hell is this guy? Why would we want somebody that gets dismantled by poor little Chelsea?
I'm looking forward to that match. I think that's going to be a really good match to watch.
It's at Brighton, so it could be tough. We'll see. But, yeah, we'll look at De Zerbi and give some analysis on the next pod, maybe of what he was doing well or hopefully not so well against Chelsea, and if he'd be a good fit. We've mentioned we'll be doing this pod eventually after the season. hopefully before they make a hire, so we can analyze maybe a couple candidates. But if they hire somebody right away, we'll obviously talk about who that person is at Bayern. And maybe at Chelsea if they make a hire. I don't even want to go there, but we'll see.
I actually made some notes about a video to do in the summer called What Went Wrong with Thomas Tuchel at Bayern.
I'm sure there's not enough things because he did everything perfectly.
Here we go. Sign the petition.
I've always said I would. I haven't. I don't know if it's something you can do when you're in the United States and not on German land. I feel like you got to be a true German motherland person to sign it, but if I could, I would.
We'll see what happens. We'll have a lot to say, so stay tuned. Just as all this news breaks, and it happens so fast, there's always something to talk about. Do you have anything else to mention regarding Chelsea's upcoming matches or anything?
I'll just mention, we're still looking at potential excitement for the EPL title. City's got that game in hand that they'll play this week before the final matches on Sunday. They all play at, I want to say, 10 a.m. Central Time on Sunday. So it's cool because when everybody's playing at the same time, same as Bundesliga that they'll do for the final weekend, you can't necessarily look at other results for sure. You can keep an eye on them, but since they won't be done, it makes for excitement if we have it. Unfortunately, City will probably just beat Tottenham this week, who's been dreadful, and then whoever they play last week, somebody that's not too tough, and they'll probably lock it up. But Chelsea, obviously Brighton on Wednesday, and then against Bournemouth at the Bridge on Sunday. Going to be a good one once again, a game that they should win, vying for that 6th or 7th spot, depending on how Newcastle end up. I'm just really excited, and it's going to be bittersweet at the same time because you'll have Thiago Silva, who's announced he's going to Fluminense. He will have his last match at the Bridge. It's going to be sad. There's probably going to be a massive banner for him. The fans will be chanting his name, singing his name all match.
As they should.
As they definitely should. A guy who was super solid for 4 years. So I'll be wearing my jersey for sure, and we'll see.
Yeah, I'm expecting City to take the EPL title, but I'll be excited to see whatever happens at the end there too. And obviously always exciting to watch the great Chelsea Football Club. So I think that will about wrap us up for today, and we got to go spend time with our mothers, just as everybody should on this beautiful day. So that'll about do it for us. Check us out everywhere: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter. Go Bayern.
Up the Chelsea.